The first official warning comes fast, not a suggestion, not a recommendation, an order. And when it arrives, it hits the town like a second disaster, because now everyone understands the situation is beyond control. Sirens begin to echo through the streets, bouncing off the stone buildings, growing louder as emergency vehicles push their way into the collapsing maze of narrow roads. Blue lights flash across cracked walls and shattered windows. Officers shout through megaphones, their voices sharp, urgent, almost breaking. Leave immediately. Do not go back inside. This area is being evacuated. And suddenly, panic turns into movement. People flood into the streets with bags, blankets, plastic grocery sacks stuffed with whatever they could grab in seconds. Some carry children half asleep. Some carry pets that are trembling so violently they can barely be held. Others carry nothing at all because there was no time. The evacuation count climbs rapidly. Hundreds, then over 1,000. And still, more keep coming. Officials announce the number out loud, 1,500 evacuated, but even that feels like an estimate because the scene is chaos, a town in motion, a population in shock, a hillside that does not care about human schedules. Outside, a temporary checkpoint forms. Rescue teams try to keep people calm, but the fear is contagious. Every few minutes, someone points toward the slope, screaming that the cracks are spreading again, that a building is leaning more than it was moments ago, that the ground is shifting. And in the middle of it all, the worst part isn't the noise, it's the hesitation. Because some residents refuse to leave. They stand in their doorways, staring at the homes their families have lived in for centuries. They shake their heads as if the authorities are overreacting. They insist they'll stay just one more hour, just one more night, until we know for sure. But officials don't have the luxury of patience. The orders become more aggressive. Police physically guide people out. Fire crews bang on doors, forcing them open if nobody answers. The urgency rises with every passing minute because the hillside isn't slowing down. It's getting worse. Some residents break down on the roadside, sobbing uncontrollably. Others are angry, shouting at officials, demanding answers that no one can give. Will my house survive? Is it safe to go back? How long will this last? But there is no clear timeline. Because this isn't a fire you can extinguish. This is the earth moving beneath the town. As the evacuation continues, the emergency zone expands. Barricades go up, streets are blocked off. A once living town becomes a restricted disaster zone, sealed like a crime scene. And then comes the moment that changes everything. A loud rumble rolls through the air, not thunder, not a truck, something deeper. The hillside shifts again, strong enough to make people stumble as they run. Dust bursts into the sky from somewhere behind the buildings, and screams erupt as residents realize the ground just moved while they were still standing on it. That's when the last remaining holdouts finally understand. This isn't a warning anymore. This is the beginning of a collapse. By now, the town doesn't look like a place preparing for disaster. It looks like a place that has already been hit. And the terrifying part is this. The destruction isn't coming from the sky. It isn't coming from the sea. It isn't even coming from a sudden explosion. It's coming from underneath. Right now, the warning signs are everywhere. Impossible to miss, impossible to deny. They're written across the streets, the walls, the foundations of homes that have stood for centuries. Cracks slice through the pavement like lightning frozen in stone. Some are thin and sharp. Others are wide enough to swallow a foot. In certain streets, the ground has begun to ripple, bending and buckling as if the town is being folded by invisible hands. And it's spreading. A house at the edge of town has a deep split running from the roofline down to the front steps. The door is stuck halfway open, twisted by the shifting frame. Inside, furniture has slid across the floor. Cabinets have burst open. Plates lie shattered like the home has been shaken violently. But nobody touched it. The ground did. In another part of town, a retaining wall has begun to bow outward. Stones that were once tightly locked together are now separating. A few drop onto the street below, crashing like gunshots in the silence that follows. Every sound feels like a countdown. And then there are the sinkholes. Small at first, holes that look like someone punched the earth with a fist, but as the hours pass, they widen, they deepen. One appears near a narrow alley, and within minutes the edges crumble, dragging more ground into the darkness below. People stare into these openings and realize something horrifying. The land is hollowing out. The hill is losing its grip, and it's not happening slowly anymore. Officials begin marking danger zones with spray paint, circling cracks, measuring shifts. They place warning tape across roads that have become too unstable to cross. But even as they work, the town keeps moving beneath them. A crack that was 1 meter long in the morning is now 5 meters long by afternoon. A street that was level yesterday is now slanted. And some residents watching from behind barricades swear they can actually see the change happening with their own eyes. The hillside is creeping like a slow wave. Every hour the tension grows. People can feel it in their stomachs, like the air itself is charged with dread. Even the animals react. And then the most chilling warning sign appears. A church bell tower, one of the oldest structures in town, begins to tilt. Not dramatically, not enough to collapse right away, but enough to make every person watching fall silent. Because if something that old, something built of heavy stone, can shift like that, then nothing is safe. The cracks spread outward from the center like veins. The town's foundation is breaking apart piece by piece, and every new fracture feels like another thread snapping. Scientists and engineers arrive and stop in their tracks, staring at the slope with pale faces, because the pattern is clear now. This isn't random damage. This is a full landslide forming in real time. And the scariest part? The town hasn't even reached the worst moment yet. At first, the movement is slow enough that people can pretend it isn't real. A crack here, a shifting wall there, but then something changes. Right now, the hillside stops creeping and begins to move with purpose. A deep rumble rolls through the town, low and violent, like thunder trapped underground. The sound is not coming from the sky, it's coming from beneath the streets. And then the ground lurches, not a gentle shift, a sudden pull. A section of roadway drops and slides sideways, snapping apart like a broken bone. Dust explodes into the air, rising between buildings like smoke from a fire. People scream from behind the barricades as the earth visibly tears itself open. The hillside is no longer slowly collapsing, it is beginning to run. A retaining wall gives out with a deafening crack, sending stones tumbling into the street below. A parked car shifts slightly, then rolls on its own until it bumps into another vehicle. Everything is moving, and the most terrifying part is the speed. In just minutes, the cracks widen, entire sections of pavement lift and buckle like waves in the ocean. Emergency crews pull back immediately. They don't hesitate. They've seen enough. Because this is the moment everyone fears, the moment the slope stops warning and starts taking. A heavy stone staircase collapses in on itself, dropping into a jagged trench that wasn't there an hour ago. The sound is sharp, brutal, final. And then, one building shifts. A tall old home, built from thick Sicilian stone, creaks like a ship in a storm. Its front wall separates from the rest of the structure. Then it collapses outward. The wall crashes into the street, sending debris and dust in every direction. The impact shakes nearby buildings. From the edge of the evacuation zone, people cry out. Some cover their mouths in horror. Some fall to their knees, because that wasn't just a wall, that was proof. Authorities shout new orders. The perimeter is pushed back even farther. Helicopters circle above, filming the destruction from the air as the dust cloud thickens. And now the fear becomes something else. Not panic, not confusion, something colder. Because everyone watching understands the same thing at the same time. If the hillside is already doing this, if it's already tearing buildings apart, then what happens when the entire slope finally gives way? What happens when the landslide stops moving in pieces and comes down as one unstoppable wave? The cameras capture the cracks, the collapsing walls, the dust clouds rising like smoke over the hillside. But what they can't fully capture is what's happening to the people. Because right now, more than 2,500 residents are no longer citizens of a town. They are refugees of the ground itself. They stand in parking lots, school gyms, temporary shelters, staring at their phones, refreshing the same updates again and again, hoping someone will say the movement has stopped. But it hasn't, and the worst part is what they had to leave behind. Families are arriving with only a backpack, a plastic bag, a blanket grabbed from a bed that may no longer exist. Some are still wearing slippers. Some are carrying documents pressed tightly to their chest like they're holding onto their entire identity. A man in his 60s is seen sitting on the curb, head in his hands, staring into nothing. His house has been in his family for generations. His father was born there. His grandfather built part of it with his own hands, and now it's on a moving hill. A young mother holds her child close, whispering promises she cannot guarantee. The child keeps asking the same question, when can we go home? No one answers, because the word home is starting to feel like a memory. Across the shelter, an elderly couple sits silently beside a small suitcase. They don't speak. They don't cry. They just stare forward, as if their minds are still back in the town, walking through the rooms they may never see again. And then there are the pets. Some people manage to grab them in time. Dogs wrapped in blankets, cats pressed into carriers. But not everyone was that lucky. There are reports of animals left behind in locked houses, trapped in streets now blocked by emergency tape. Rescue teams want to go back for them, but they can't, because the ground is still shifting, and every step inside that zone is a gamble with death. The town's small businesses are already finished. Shops with their shutters closed forever. Restaurants with tables still set, food still inside refrigerators, waiting for customers that will never return. Pharmacies, bakeries, family-owned markets, places that were once the heartbeat of the town are now sitting on a slope that is literally tearing itself apart. Some residents stand at the edge of the evacuation zone, watching from a distance. They point at rooftops, at balconies, at the church tower. They try to locate their home like it's a person in a crowd, but the town looks different now, broken, tilted, wrong. And then, in the middle of the crowd, someone screams. A new video has surfaced, a live clip showing another building collapsing, stone crashing down into the street, dust rising like a shockwave. And the reaction is instant. People cry out, some break down completely, because now it's not just fear of what might happen, it's grief for what already is happening. Right now, in Sicily, an ancient town is being erased in slow motion, and the people can only watch, powerless, as the ground takes everything. Right now, the disaster is no longer confined to cracked buildings and broken streets. It's spreading into the systems that keep the town alive, and that's when everything starts to feel truly out of control. The first major failure is the roads. What were once narrow, winding Sicilian streets are now twisted and split, some sections rising like jagged ramps, others sinking into sudden dips. Asphalt peels apart in long strips. Entire lanes shift sideways, making them unusable. Emergency vehicles that try to enter are forced to stop. A rescue truck attempts to move forward, but the ground beneath its tires is unstable. It backs away quickly, as if the road might swallow it. Because at this point, it can. Then the utilities begin to fail. A water main ruptures somewhere under the slope. Suddenly, a muddy stream pours through the streets like the town is bleeding from below. The water isn't clean. It's mixed with dirt and debris. It doesn't just cause damage, it makes everything worse. Water seeps into the broken ground, turning the hillside into something softer, heavier, more dangerous. And then the lights flicker, power cuts hit sections of the town, street lamps go dark. Homes that still have electricity lose it in an instant. Communication systems begin to struggle as cables snap or poles tilt at unnatural angles. A few phone signals fail, then more, and suddenly, people outside the zone can't reach loved ones still inside emergency shelters. Panic spreads faster than the landslide itself. Emergency services are flooded with calls, and the responders are running out of options. Firefighters, police, engineers, everyone is working under the same terrifying reality. The ground they're standing on could shift at any moment. Heavy equipment is brought in, but it can't be placed safely. The terrain is unstable, and even the vibrations from machinery could trigger a bigger collapse. Authorities try to create safe routes, but some are destroyed. One road is blocked by debris. Another is cut by a widening trench that turns the pavement into islands. The town is being isolated, piece by piece, and now the fear becomes sharper. Officials realize something horrifying. If this landslide accelerates again, rescue crews may not be able to get in. And if anyone is still trapped inside when the hillside finally gives way, there will be no way to reach them. Right now, Sicily isn't just losing buildings, it's losing control. Right now, the town is quieter than it should be. Not peaceful, not safe. Quiet like a place holding its breath before impact. The streets are mostly empty now. The evacuation zone has expanded again, pushing people farther away, because authorities are no longer treating this as a localized landslide. They're treating it as a full collapse waiting to happen. And the reason is simple: the hillside is still moving. Even after buildings have cracked, even after roads have broken, even after entire sections of town have shifted out of alignment, the ground does not stop. Experts on site are watching the slope with growing fear because the pattern is unmistakable. The movement is uneven, slow for a moment, then sudden, like the land is slipping in violent pulses. And every pulse brings the same terrifying possibility: a full release, a total breakaway. A massive wall of earth, stone, and debris surging downward with unstoppable force. If that happens, the destruction won't be partial, it will be complete. Homes won't just crack, they'll be crushed. Streets won't just split, they'll vanish. The town won't be damaged, it will be erased. And now officials are quietly discussing the worst-case scenario out loud, because they have to. They're looking at what lies below the slope: lower roads, nearby buildings, fields and infrastructure that could be swallowed if the hillside gives way. They're calculating how far the debris could travel, how fast it could move, how many seconds it would take. And none of those answers are comforting. People who live outside the evacuation zone are being warned to prepare. Some are packing bags, not because they've been ordered to leave yet, but because they can feel what's coming. Because when the land begins to move like this, it doesn't always stop at one town. It can spread. It can trigger secondary collapses. It can cause new breaks in the hillside that no one predicted. And right now, Sicily is on edge. A sudden tremor is reported. Small, brief, but enough to send a shock through the emergency teams. Dust rises again from the slope, and cameras catch another building shifting, its roofline sagging as the foundation slips out from beneath it. And the crowd watching from a distance reacts with horror, because it's still happening. The town is still sliding. Authorities have no clear moment when they can say, "It's over." No announcement that the danger has passed, only updates that get darker by the hour. And then one official says the words that chill everyone listening: "The movement is accelerating again." That single sentence changes everything, because acceleration means the hillside is losing its last grip. It means the ground is closer to breaking free. It means the next shift could be the one that triggers total destruction. Right now, the people of Sicily are staring at a nightmare unfolding in slow motion. And the most terrifying part is this: the earth has not finished moving. Not yet.